tell me to work in moss stitch for so many stitches, and then tell me to repeat. I like my patterns a little bit more concise. Hello, fiber friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got a traditional podcast episode for you. So if that sounds like it'll be of interest to you, I hope you'll stick around. Hello, knitting friends. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Kristin, and today I've just got a traditional podcast episode for you. So finished objects, whips, a little bit of sewing, a little bit of yarn, all of those good traditional podcasty type things. And maybe even a little bit of off the needles kind of chit chat at the end. So before we jump into things, today I am wearing my Odyssey pullover. This is a pattern by me. It is an all over cabled pullover with saddle shoulders. And it is knit in Doerr Natura Ulysse, which is a lovely yarn, but I will say it picks up a lot of lint. And I have 2 cats and a dog, so that part is not so great. It's just kind of a stickier yarn. So it gets a lot of fur and fuzz and other things on it, but otherwise it is lovely and very comfortable. All right, we are going to jump in with finished objects. And the first thing I'm going to talk about it as if it is a finished object because it is so close to being a finished object. And the only reason it is not finished is because I ran out of yarn. And the only thing left to knit is a cuff. So it would be kind of silly to talk about it being almost done and then come back in a couple of weeks and be like, and now it has a cuff. Otherwise it looks the same. So we're going to pretend this is a finished object. And that is my Down Cardigan. No cuff. So I will put a little B-roll in here of me actually wearing this cardigan. This is a pattern by Lily Kate France. I knit my cardigan in Knit Picks City Tweed DK in the colorway Blue Blood. And I need one more ball to finish this cuff. So I have been working on this, I looked, since last February. I cast on February 14th, 2025. And then I did, I put it away in the summer when things got, when the weather got warmer and I wasn't going to be wearing it. And I picked it back up in the fall. And honestly, I've had a lot of problems with it, other than just running out of yarn. First of all, this sweater came out much longer than I was hoping for. It grew a lot. And I also had a problem, you may recall, where I knit the armholes too long because I didn't adjust for my row gauge difference. And then I actually just seamed up along the side of the body a little bit into what was the armhole. So like right here to shorten that up. But I do think it is still very long, and it also did grow with blocking. And the body of the sweater is also very long, even though I knit it to the pattern specifications. So my conclusion is that this yarn grew a fair bit. So the first problem with this one, the armhole. The second one wasn't really a problem. It's just that the button band, which is lovely and looks wonderful now that it is done, it took forever. It took so long, the double knit button band. It is a relatively wide double knit button band. And it, as you can see, it goes all the way up around the neck. And there are some short rows in the button band to accommodate the shaping of the neckline and around the back neck. And as I said, it looks lovely, very polished, very neat, but it took a very, very long time. And also, of course, took a fair bit of yarn. As usual, don't hang your sweaters on hangers like this. It's not good for them. This is just for display. And honestly, I almost gave up because it was just taking so long. And you know, you're knitting the button band back and forth. It is double knitting, so you're constantly turning the piece, and there's a lot of fabric here. So that was the second. And now the third, I have run out of yarn. So Knit Picks still sells this yarn. I can order it. It's only like $7 a ball. But I'm not going to order a ball of yarn from Knit Picks. You know, that's especially a $7 ball of yarn, which is about what they're going to charge me for shipping. So I am still on a reduced yarn buying budget. So I think I will just need to wait until I have some room in the budget to buy some yarn. I did buy some yarn that I'm going to show you later, and had I known that I was going to run out of yarn for this, I would have ordered a ball of yarn then, but I didn't. So overall, lovely pattern. It is a very long, but there are a lot of just really nice shaping details in here. And so unlike some other patterns I've tried recently where I feel like it's really wordy for no reason, it is very detailed, but I do feel like there's a reason. There's a lot of nice, you know, sleeve cap short row shaping. As I said, short rows in the button band. For the back of the button band, you're actually picking up more stitches than you cast on for the back neck. And so she's explaining how to do that. So a long sort of detailed pattern, but not overdone, not unnecessarily detailed. As I said, this came out longer than I wanted. I knit the size 2. So based on the pattern, I would have knit a size 3, but I didn't want it to be that oversized. So I went with the 2, which is fine in terms of the fit of the body. But I was hoping it was going to come out more like hitting the top of the waistband. And now it's really going to be more kind of like a grandpa sweater because it is both oversized and pretty long. I do love the tweedy effect of the yarn, really adding to that sort of grandpa vibe. And I wanted to talk about these buttons because I have no idea where they came from. I needed 3 buttons, pretty big ones, and I thought I was going to have to order some. And then I was looking in my button bag and I found them. And I must have gotten in them in like a yarn swap. Remember when we used to do those? They were fun. That's the only thing I can think of is that that's where they came from. Because I wouldn't have any particular reason to buy buttons like this, but they seem to match perfectly. And I love that. So I was very fortunate. And I really am very sad that I have no idea where they came from. They're like ceramic buttons, I think. And the red color in them is slightly, it doesn't quite match, but it's close enough. And so that is a nice little element. Here is the actual finished sleeve. So the sleeves are tapered all the way down. The tapering even continues into the ribbing. And a nice, Italian, get it to focus, Italian bind off, neat and tidy. Just a lovely pattern, a lot of nice finishing details. As you can see, it's mostly stockinette. There's not a ton going here, but just the shaping and the finishing details are really nice. I just ran out of yarn. So that is kind of a bummer. Now, you said it's too long. Why don't you just shorten it and then use the extra yarn to finish the sleeve? Because then I would have to pull out the entire button band. That is one of the unfortunate things about the double knit button band is you would have to pull out the entire thing in order to then pull out extra length from the bottom. There is also, and we can see the very lowest part, it is a cutaway a little bit. There is shaping here, decreases to keep that kind of open and split at the bottom. So then you'd have to rework that shaping in there. It would be too much. It would be too much. I didn't enjoy knitting that button band the first time. I'm not doing it a second time. I would rather have a slightly longer cardigan and spend another $7 on a ball of yarn, then have to reknit that button band. So hopefully I will get a little yarn budget wiggle room sometime in the near future. I'm sure there's other projects I could buy yarn for at Knit Picks, and then get this and be able to finish this before the weather gets super warm. So we had snow. The kids had a snow day. Today is Thursday. The kids had a snow day on Monday. We got about, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches of snow, but it melted pretty quickly. And it is supposed to warm up next week, but I know spring isn't actually coming. It's fake spring that's coming. And I know it will get chilly again. And this will be something nice to wear. I lost Yarn Chicken, and that sucks. I do have 2 other small projects that I actually finished this month. So the first are my Latido socks. This is a pattern I just launched on Valentine's Day. So I had knit the first sock last month and then dilly-dallied around until like 5 days before I wanted to launch the pattern, and finally made the second one. So in case you missed it, these are just a cuff down, pretty simple cabled sock with a regular heel flap and gusset. Nothing super fancy. The yarn is Magpie Fibers Quartet Fingering, which is not really a sock yarn because it doesn't have nylon, but it really looks, I think, very nice in these. And I will just remember to not be wearing these when I'm, out and about, but these are really in the house socks, not for, doing my daily walks or whatever. And this is my favorite colorway of hers, which is called Wicked Game. And when I was on her website, like checking out the details about this yarn, because I had lost the yarn label, I couldn't find this colorway on any of her current bases. I don't know if she stopped dyeing it or what. But this is my favorite Magpie colorway. It's getting a little blown out there. Just like a brownie, purpley pink with a little bit of variation in there. So if you missed it, this sock pattern is now available. Pattern includes 5 sizes, nothing super fancy if you know how to knit socks and work simple cable twists. These are nice, just, a little bit of a step above a plain vanilla sock. So I finished those, and then I finished another pair of socks. I haven't blocked these yet, but these are just a pair of plain vanilla socks in Patons Croy. So I think the first time I used Patons Croy was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I did kind of an experiment trying to shop for yarn at big box stores when Joann's was still open. So I don't know if I got it at Michael's or Joann's, but I got my first ball of the Patons Croy sock. It is very reasonably priced. I just checked as I was preparing for today, and it's about $7 a ball. You need 2 balls for a pair of socks, so $14 pair of socks. And this is not a soft yarn. It's not a fancy yarn, and the colorways are kind of hit or miss. So this particular colorway is called Tourmaline Stripes. And you can see on this one, there's kind of some weird pooling here that is not on this one. And my assumption is that is because I knit one of these from the toe up and the other one from the cuff down, just to keep things, kind of interesting and to kind of stave off second sock syndrome. But if you want socks that are going to last a long time, the Patons Croy sock is a very good choice. So I have another pair of the first pair of socks that I knit in the Patons Croy. They're so hard wearing. One ended up in the washing machine by mistake last week with the regular laundry. Came out fine. I don't see any weak spots. Like, they are really very, very sturdy. So especially if you have people in your life that are like, oh, can you knit something for me? $14, you get a pair of socks that are really going to last quite a long time. So the other pair I have are kind of a red-gray marl that is a very nice color. This one, it's fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I need more wool socks, and mine tend to wear out very quickly on the ball of the foot. I don't know why. And so I really just wanted you can see I didn't like pay attention to whether they were going to match. I just wanted to get another nice sturdy pair of wool socks for the rest of winter. And these fit the bill. So like I said, $14 for a pair of nice sturdy socks, 2 balls for kind of an average. So I did make the legs on these maybe a little bit longer than I usually do, maybe by like an inch. And there is a little bit of yarn left over that I think will be, I've got an idea that I want to start knitting some like gnomes, like Sarah Shearer's gnomes. I want a couple of those in my life. And I think the leftover yarn will work nicely in some gnomes, but it's really just a tiny bit. So basically 1 ball for each sock. And great, now I have some more socks to last me through the winter. Now I need to quickly cast on another pair. It's like I said, all of my I have, without these two, I have 5 pairs. No, 1, 2, 3, 4 pair of non-Christmas wool hand knit socks that I go through very quickly. So I need to get another pair on the needles. So they do still sell this at Michael's. You can buy it online. Going into the store, very hit or miss. So I do think I got this color at Michael's, and this was like all they had, and they only had like 2 balls left. So, but you can grab it online as well. And then the last little finished object, I'm just going to pop a photo in here. So, and the January podcast episode, I had almost finished my Josie hood. I just needed to do the trim, and I did do that, and I did get that finished at the very end of January, and then wore it after we had our big snowstorm. So that one did get finished as well, in case you were curious. All right, so I have 2 sweaters that I cast on at about the same time, right around January 1st. So one of them I actually cast on, I know December 31st, I swatched, because you might recall I am doing a 12-month cast on, make 12 for 2026. And I have picked out a project that I can cast on each month, but only if I have finished a project the month before. So if you're keeping track, I have finished 2 pair of socks and basically a sweater this month. So I do get to cast on my March project. And this was my January cast on, and that is my Cozycottagecardi, which I am now just about done the body on. So I need to start the ribbing. So I put this marker in. According to the pattern, I should knit 4 more inches down from this marker before starting the ribbing, but I don't want my sweater to end up too long. And I think this yarn is going to grow a lot lengthwise because of the half fisherman's rib and because of the structure of this yarn. So the yarn I am using for this was gifted to me by Katya. It is their pure organic wool, 100% organic wool, chlorine-free. That's all we know about it, in this beautiful snowy white color. And it has, I don't know what the actual structure of the yarn is, and I don't know if you can really see it from here. It has some weird structure. It's not a traditional ply. I don't know if it's a chain ply or what the deal is, but the structure of it is a little bit different. It's very airy. It's very soft. It has been lovely to work with, but yeah, it kind of looks like little loops in there. I don't know. And I'm not a yarn expert, so at least in terms of like how it's structured. If you snag it though, you have to be very careful to make sure you're getting in the needle tip, not in the yarn, because it does snag pretty easily. But because of this, whatever structure of the yarn and half fisherman's rib, I do think this is going to grow lengthwise. And I don't want it to be too long. I don't want it actually to be as long as the pictures. I was double checking them this morning because I have relatively short torso, and I want it to kind of hit like right at the waistband. So I'm going to start the ribbing. I can't find the needles I need for it. I need a US 7 needle. I swear I have at least 2 sets of US 7 needle tips. One of them is in another project I'm going to show you, but I should have another one. I can't figure out where it is. So I will either have to keep looking and hopefully find it, or perhaps borrow it from that other project, since right now I just need it for the ribbing. The sleeves on this are relatively short because the shoulder does come pretty far down on your arm. So it's a drop shoulder, and then the sleeves are not, normally maybe you would make your sleeves like 17 inches long, but I don't think they need to be as long. So ribbing, sleeves, and then while I do think it kind of looks nice this way, this does need a button band as well, and it is a double knit button band. I am going to have to get more yarn. So I've got 3 balls left, I think. Yeah, 3 balls left. So 1 ball of yarn gets from here to here. So that's, I don't know, maybe 2 inches of fabric. Now, as I said, the sleeves are shorter. Obviously, the sleeves are not going to be like the whole width of this fabric, but I do still think I'm going to need more than 2 balls of yarn. I'm just not sure how much I'm going to need. So I'm going to do the ribbing, and then I'm going to do 1 sleeve and see how we go before I order any more yarn, because I don't want to order too much. But I cannot imagine I would be able to finish this with just the 3 balls that are left. They are only, let's see, I don't want to say only, but they are, come on, 120 yards each. So gonna have to get a few more of those, but I do think, especially with the sleeves being knit in the round, except for that button band, double knitting, it should be relatively quick to do the sleeves. The only thing is, you've got the cable columns, and then you've got the half fisherman's rib. And because the gauge, the row gauge between the half fisherman's rib and the cables is different, you have to work a short row. And that short row has been very painful. So I'm very excited to have the body done. I know you'll still have to do it for the sleeves, but again, so many fewer stitches. So for the short row, you come in here, you work to here, you turn, you work to here, you turn, you work back, and then you work all the way to here, and you turn, and you come back here, and you turn, and you come back here. It's so slow, and you're turning all of this fabric every time. It's a very simple pattern, and it's very, very clever of the designer to recognize that that's not a gauge difference you should hope to remedy with blocking, that you need to put the short rows in there to accommodate for it, but it makes for a much slower project, and 1 row out of every 6 is very painful because it's just so slow with that short row. But I'm done. I've done that part, I think. I will double check and try this on before I start the ribbing, but I'm 90% certain that this is the body length that I want, and I'm ready to move on to the ribbing as soon as I find those US 7 needle tips. So, as I said, this yarn was gifted to me by Katya. If you want to grab some of your own, there is an affiliate link in the description box down below. So that was my January Make 12 cast on. This one, as I said, I swatched and started on December 31st so that I could get it on the needles before my before my Make 12 requirements. And this is my Gwynver. It looks small, but this stitch pattern really stretches a lot. So this is a pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl, Sophie, and I don't think the body is done. I do think I want to make the body a little bit longer, but I wanted to put a sleeve and collar on first so that I could then do a mid-project block. I was going to do it before the sleeve, but I decided I want to do the sleeve first. Do a mid-project block and get a better idea of how much longer I want to knit the body. Because as I said, this really is a very stretchy fabric widthwise. I don't think it's going to stretch much lengthwise. And also putting the sleeve in here is going to pull, so you can see the difference between here is the bottom and then here is the bottom of the armhole on this side. So it is pulling it up when you put that sleeve on, and that's going to give me a better idea of the length. So I am knitting this in Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. This is not my super favorite yarn, although I do love this color, which is called Opal Heather, and you can see hopefully little bits of purple and such in there that I think is lovely. But I had rescued this from an old forgotten WIP, and I had a lot of it because it was like a cabled sweater I thought I was going to knit, and figured it would work well for this. And I do think it is working well. The cables look lovely. The textured stitch looks lovely all around. I think this is looking gorgeous. So I already have that nice folded collar on. I did screw it up the first time that because I don't like to sew my collars down. So I just fold it over and then knit the final round of live stitches together with a stitch from the pickup round. And I skewed it the first time, so the collar was like off to the side. So I had to rip that back and fix it, but that was relatively easy. So a nice, in retrospect, a nice way to make sure you're getting that right is I put a marker, at each corner, and then the front and the back center neck, just to make sure that they were lining up with the inside, and that worked well. So I do have the first sleeve on the needles. You basically just have to look at the chart to set up like the different, here's where this column and then this and this. And then once you have that, the actual stitch patterns are very easy to memorize. So yeah, I just had to look at the chart for like that first round. You do have to look at it a bit more during the shaping because you want to make sure, you could wing it. You could just stick whichever stitch patterns in there that you wanted. You didn't have to do it her way, but I wanted it to be like the pattern. So you want to make sure as you're increasing that you're also beginning each new stitch pattern as it is written. So then that part you do have to look a little bit more, but the actual stitch patterns themselves are very easy to memorize and they're very simple. They look much more complicated than they are. So I am really enjoying this. As I said, since it's easy to memorize, I don't have to constantly be looking at a chart or anything, and that makes it much more enjoyable for me personally. I don't like it when I have to consult with the charts and constantly be looking at directions and things. This is one of the patterns where I like it, but I think it is so unnecessarily wordy. I appreciate that she is explaining things very well for perhaps a beginner knitter, but honestly, if you're going to be knitting this, you're probably not a beginner knitter, and it just feels like there is so much unnecessary text for me personally. There's certainly nothing wrong with the pattern. So for this one, I am knitting, I believe, letters her sizes. So I am doing the D, I believe. So I guess the 4th size. I don't remember what the dimensions are, but when eventually this becomes a finished object, I will give you all of those details. But yeah, I think it's going pretty well. And so my goal now is to get both this and the Cozycottagecardi done by the end of March. And then the last WIP I want to show you is my February cast on. So according to my Make 12 here, my February project is the Ranne, I don't know how it is pronounced, Vest by Irene Lynn. And here it is. I have to tell you, between this and the Gwynver, I'm really over moss stitch. Like I was looking for a sock, like a sock pattern that was just a little bit, more than a vanilla sock that would maybe keep me, you know, hold my attention while I was working. And I came across one I liked, but it was more of whatever, moss seed, double seed, I don't know. Whatever the stitch is, it was more of that. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I've got enough. This is where I'm just going to say Ranne. I don't know. It's Ranne. This is how far I've gotten, how far along I have gotten so far. I did have a false start with this. So I started it, let me grab the yarn. The yarn I am using is Kim Dye's yarn. And this is the colorway Lady Slipper. This is on her Brioche DK, which I think is just a superwash merino DK weight. Lovely, like, from here, looks kind of like a gray, but when you get up close, you can see a little bit more variation in there. Beautiful. And I am holding it with Knit Picks Aloft in, I believe, Plover. Yes. So I started holding 1 and 1, and it wasn't looking right. This pattern here, it was looking too loose. And I had originally planned to use this yarn for something else, and I had swatched holding the 1 strand of the DK weight and 2 strands of the Plover. So I decided to take that out and try again holding the 2 strands of the silk mohair, and it's much better. So I think it's really looking beautiful. Everything is popping nicely. I'm sorry, we're starting to lose the light. I think it's going to rain, but at least it's not snow. So I have finished whole back, upper back, and armhole shaping. I've just cast on for under the arm, and now we knit the back all the way down. This has a very deep split side, so I think it's split almost all the way up to the armhole, and then there's some more double knitting along that split side seam, which means there's no knitting in the round. But it's a slip over. It doesn't have sleeves. So, basically once the front and back are done, you're pretty much done. There's no sleeves. There's no, not a whole lot else to happen. So it's okay that it's all flat, but it is a little slow, and particularly because I cannot memorize this part. So, like, nothing about it is sticking out in my brain as a kind of pattern that I can easily memorize. I have to check the chart every row. It's an 8-row repeat, and I just like the other parts, the nice big center cable, side cables, textured stitch, moss seed, whatever. Fine, memorize them all. I cannot for the life of me memorize this. So I have to keep checking the pattern, the chart, and it's annoying me and slowing me down a little bit. But it's fine. This has actually worked up, pretty quickly. I've been working on finishing the Down Cardigan, my 2 other sweaters, and I have still made, I finished basically like almost a quarter of this project already. So I think it's going well. The yarn is lovely. I love the way they are combining together. Like, you're still kind of getting like that, the little bit of variety in the grayish, but the mohair is kind of disrupting any maybe pooling or striping or anything that might be visible otherwise. So loving this project. It's so soft with the 2 strands of the mohair. Love the pattern itself. I don't care for the way the pattern is written. Again, it's like, instead of saying repeat the increase row every so many, everything's just written out row by row, and I'm, just tell me to work in moss stitch for so many stitches, and then tell me to repeat. I like my patterns a little bit more concise. So that part I don't love, but people write their patterns different ways, and that's fine. I will happily deal with it because at the end, I'm going to have the most beautiful vest, slip over, whatever we want to call it. So again, that is the Ranne, whatever, by Irene Lynn, and that is my February cast on. And that is all of the whips for this episode. All right, I do actually have a little bit of new yarn to share this month. So I already have the yarn for my March cast on, which is the Haley sweater pullover, I don't remember, by Irene Lynn. But I didn't have the yarn for my April cast on, hopefully, that I'll get to do, which is the Margot top by Gregoria Fibers, which is a very springy, summery kind of top. So I got a little bit of yarn for this. And as I said, had I known that I was going to need yarn for my Down Cardigan, I would have just thrown a ball into this order. But I did not know, so I didn't. But I had gotten a special coupon from Knit Picks for like 20% off for something or other. I don't know. It's like a, hey, you're great or whatever. Nothing specific, like a holiday. Just sent me a coupon code. And I was like, okay, maybe I should get the yarn for that April project. So this is their Dilly Dally base. I haven't used this before. It is relatively new. I think it launched last summer. And it is 70% Pima cotton, 20% bamboo, and 10% hemp. And it is a DK weight. So this particular colorway is called Shoal. I do think it might be a little bluer in real life than it is showing up on the camera. But I really think it is going to be lovely for warm weather, maybe when I have a tan. And it will be lovely for that Margot top. So the Margot top is sleeveless. It has sort of an eyelet design. I've seen a bunch of lovely versions on some podcasts recently and don't know. I think the pattern calls for plant-based fiber. Or perhaps a wool cotton blend or something like that. But I definitely wanted something really summery. There's just so little time that I would ever wear something sleeveless, but also with wool. And while maybe, again, there might be a short period of time that I might wear that, I think it's a much better idea to invest in a piece that I'm going to be able to wear a little bit more often. So went for the plant-based fiber. I don't know how many of these I got. They are 109 yards each, which to me sounds a little bit more worsted weight than DK, but I guess we'll see when it knits up. But that is for my April project, so I haven't swatched or any of that stuff yet. We will definitely be waiting and seeing if I finish a project in March before even thinking about the April, but I do have the yarn for it. The other thing I was kind of contemplating though is that so my March cast on is supposed to be the Haley sweater. I have the yarn for that, which I got as a gift for possibly my birthday, I think, and that is the Dram Natura Robinson, which is a 70% wool, 28% cotton blend. I'm none or no illusions that I'm going to start and finish this sweater in March. It's probably going to take me a couple months. And if I start a mostly wool sweater in March, by the time I'm done, am I going to be able to wear it? Or should I maybe reorder my Make 12 and bump this down to maybe start in the summer so that by the time it's done in like September, maybe I would be wearing it. I don't know. The weather here is so unpredictable. You know, some years we'll have a Memorial Day where it's 90 degrees and some years we'll have a Memorial Day where it's 60 degrees. So I just don't know. I'm debating playing with that order a little bit, in which case I would start the Margot top in March and kind of shift everything up a little bit. So it's a good thing I have the yarn, but I'm still playing with that idea. I don't know. I don't know about that. It's been a while since I shared some sewing, so I did want to share a little bit. I am hoping to have this done by the time you are watching this, but it's not right now. I started this really cute little skirt project. This is the hairless skirt. This is a pattern by an independent sewing pattern designer, Schultz Apparel. And this has been sitting on my sewing table for like a week because I need to put a zipper in. I hate putting zippers in. It's so hard. I always mess it up. Always, always guaranteed to mess up some part of the zipper process and then have to rip it out and start over. So it is an invisible zipper, and I don't think I've ever actually had an invisible zipper be invisible. But that's really the last big thing. So once the zipper goes in, then a waistband goes on and I hem the bottom and we're done. But I don't know when it's going to happen. So this is this really cute red and white polka dot fabric. I have a shirt that I made with the same fabric that I'm not showing you because it's really wrinkled. This is 100% cotton. I threw it in the dryer and it needs ironing. I don't know if the skirt and the shirt are going to go together. The skirt, I'll try to iron it and like put it on so you can see it here, the shirt. And I think it's a little long to go with this. This still is going to have like a couple of inches of waistband, and then has this yoke here, which an adjustment I made is I shortened this little yoke part, and I also shortened the skirt part a little bit. But I think with the fullness of the skirt, I'm really going to need a shirt that is a little closer fitting. And I think this shirt body is going to be too long. I'm not going to want to tuck it in. That's going to look weird. So it's kind of sad that I don't have like a little matchy set. I may have to make some adjustments to the shirt. We'll see. I should get the skirt finished first. So this is relatively simple. These points here, so the whole skirt part is gathered and then sewn into the yoke, which is straight. I haven't pulled out my basting stitches, so it looks a little, or my my gathering stitches, so it does look a little weird. And then it's kind of sewing up and around these points in the yoke. It was a little weird and a little wonky, but it actually turned out okay. I didn't have to redo it any times. And yeah, now we're just going to sew on kind of a straight waistband that has a button after we get that zipper in. But then we do have to hem the skirt, and that's always a pain. But at least it's not a circle skirt. That's the worst kind. So this is really, I've been trying to sew like one garment a month. So I did the shirt in January, and hopefully I'm going to have this skirt actually done in February. And then we'll see what is coming up for March. But I think next I want to use this fabric, and I'm just not sure for what. So I have 2.5 meters, which is approximately the same amount of yards. And this is a 100% cotton. 2.5 meters could maybe be enough for like a sleeveless dress. So I'm not sure, but I love this very kind of 70s fabric. So maybe a dress. I have a fair number of patterns in my pattern library, but I haven't picked anything out for this one in particular yet. Well, it is still winter, so mostly staying inside, doing lots of knitting and baking. So I just wanted to share a little bit about a couple of books I've read recently, some shows I've been enjoying watching. I am currently reading All the Light We Cannot See. And it seems like basically every book I've read recently has been about World War II. So that book is about World War II. I recently finished The Nightingale by Kristin, which I did enjoy. Not as much as The Women, but I still enjoyed it. And that was about World War II. I recently read El viento, conoce mi nombre by Isabel Allende, which starts in World War II. It doesn't end there. That was a little too, like, as I said, it starts in World War II, but it ends in like 2020 United States. And that's a little more modern than I like most of my books. So I love Isabel Allende. Um, that's not my favorite of her books, but it was a good book. And then I read The Whalebone Theater, which also ends at World War II. I don't know what's going on. This hasn't been my intention. It just is the way it worked out. But all of them have been very good. Whalebone Theater starts very slowly. I did enjoy it by probably about halfway through, but the first part, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? I don't care. That one is a little bit more of a slog in the beginning. I also had trouble getting into the Nightingale at first. So I had started it and then I stopped for a bit because I was, I don't know, because when I was reading The Women, I got into that one right away. This one, it was a little harder to get into it, but I am glad I stuck with it. All the Light We Cannot See, though, has really has moved pretty quickly. The only thing I'm not enjoying about it is, so I don't do audiobooks. I have tried. I can't. They don't work for my brain. So I'm like physically reading books, and All the Light We Cannot See, like every chapter is very short. It's like 2 pages and it's back and forth and back and forth. So I don't particularly like that structure for the book, but overall the story is good. And I found out, I mean, it's not like a secret, I just had not realized that I guess they did a Netflix miniseries of it. It has Mark Ruffalo, who I love. I don't know if it's still available on Netflix. I'm hoping that it is still available because I would like to then watch it once I finish the book. I am about halfway through. And then after that, I will be reading The Possession of Alma Diaz. I really hope that's not about World War II. Nothing wrong with it. It's also like my oldest son wanted to learn more about World War II. So I got him like a graphic novel history book about World War II, which he has been reading to me. So it's like, okay, is this a message from somebody? I don't know, but a lot of World War II. So I'm really hoping The Possession of Alma Diaz is about some other time period. I love historical fiction. It doesn't all have to be World War II. Of course, we've also been watching some TV. We watched Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which it's fine. It's cute. There's a cute kid in it. We did watch Game of Thrones. I never watched the last season of Game of Thrones, maybe even the last 2. At some point, it got too violent for me. And then, he didn't even write the last books. They were just making it up. So I didn't finish that. But we have watched, what's the other one? The prequel, The House of the Dragon. And Night of the Seven Kingdoms is relatively short. I think it was only like 6 episodes. And has a cute kid. It's fine. Also, we've been watching Bridgerton, of course. The second half of season, whatever we're on, 4, starts tonight. But I will not be watching it because my husband plays Dungeons and Dragons tonight. So maybe tomorrow. A show that we liked, Paradise. Their second season has just started. I haven't watched any of it yet. We did watch the second season of 1,000 Blows, which was good. I enjoyed both, so both seasons of that were great. I'm hearing a lot of good things about The Pit. I haven't checked it out yet. I've also been hearing good things about season 2 of The Artful Dodger. Apparently season 1 was kind of meh, but they've revamped it, and now a lot of people are saying, if you like these kind of historical period dramas, you will like this. So I may check that out as well. But those are the things that have been keeping us busy in the cold days of winter, which is hopefully coming to an end. One last thing I wanted to drop in here. A couple of weeks ago in my video it was my part 2 of Retired Pattern Designers You Should Know, I made a comment about J.K. Rowling that apparently upset some TERFs. And to that, I say, good. I don't care. My content isn't for you. If you're MAGA, my content is not for you. If you support ICE, my content is not for you. Goodbye. But what I really wanted to mention specifically, and I did say this in a comment, is that this is a knitting podcast. It is not a podcast about politics, but it is also not an apolitical podcast, because politics is part of life. And I am a human person living in the United States. It affects my life in many ways. My husband is an immigrant. My children are Latino. My children are neurodivergent. My children have developmental disorders. So politics impacts my life every day. And while this podcast is not going to become about politics, politics is going to come up sometimes. Because again, I'm a human person living in the United States, a person with a uterus. So these things impact me. And I'm going to talk about them sometimes on my channel. So if you don't like that and you are looking for a space on the internet that is politics free, that is your choice, and you are welcome to watch somebody else. But what you're not welcome to do is throw a tantrum in the comments about how I ruined your morning coffee by forcing you to think about the bad things that are happening in the world. It is your responsibility to curate the space online that you want. It's not my responsibility or anybody else's responsibility to create that space for you. But in case it wasn't clear, this is not ever going to be a politics-free space. All right, friends, we have officially lost the light. Rain is on its way, so I guess it is time to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you found it entertaining or interesting at all, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media by Joanna, and I will see you soon in another video.